Yes, another tier list within literally the matter of like a week. So I am pretty happy about this. So hey guys, Sly here, and welcome back to another episode of the Slimy Tier Lists. We rarely ever do tier lists this close to each other, but I wanted to finally take advantage of today because, well, if you guys know exactly what today is, it is May the 4th. Be with you. Also known as, well, Star Wars Day, essentially. It's basically like an unofficial holiday, dedicated to, celebrating the cultural phenomenon that is Star Wars. And, I mean, it's it's not an official holiday. It's more unofficial, but there's millions of people celebrate it anyways, so it might as well be. But yeah, no. Obviously, Star Wars, I've talked about this plenty of times before. It is a franchise that I do highly respect. It is a franchise that I have grown and loved for 20 years. I remember I remember back 20 years ago whenever I first saw Revenge of the Sith in theaters. It was one of the first films I do remember distinctly watching in the theater, and so that definitely holds a lot of special memories for me personally. And, well, truth be told, millions of other people kind of share similar experiences, whether they saw the original trilogy in theaters or they saw any of the prequels in theaters or hell, even the newer movies. And I've got my criticisms of a lot of the stuff that Star Wars has produced lately, but you can't deny that as far as massive franchises, Star Wars is up there as far as both mainstream popularity, but even just general um interest, if that makes sense. And there's not really a lot of franchises that I can think of that have had this long lasting staying power while also being, well, a completely different universe. I don't know, it's just kind of weird. Well, it's weird, but like in a cool way. And, well, 2 years ago, back in 2023, we actually did our tier list on Star Wars film and TV shows, and I did leave out video games. Well, 2 years later, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about most of the Star Wars video games. This isn't every single Star Wars game, so do keep that in mind. This is not like a full list, but it is as thorough of a list as I can personally get for this tier list. We've got about 97 games on here, which is a lot. Though to much dismay, we may not be able to talk about every single one of them, but of course we'll get to them individually. But yeah, so just kind of the history of Star Wars video games. They've been around almost as long as the films have been around. Um, Obviously, after Star Wars came out, everyone was trying to see if they can capitalize on the success of New Hope, or what was just called Star Wars back then, as well as Empire Strikes Back. And we saw a plethora of different merchandising that came out, toy licenses, trading card games, action figures, like just any sort of memorabilia you can think of. There is most likely a Star Wars equivalent, and, well, video games were no exception. However, here's the interesting thing about Star Wars video games is that it is a movie license. These are movie license games, technically speaking. And, well, usually if something is a movie licensed video game, that tends to have a bit of a negative connotation to it. I can definitely think of plenty of examples of some of the absolute worst games of all time that, well, just so happened to have also been tied to a movie, whether it be good or bad. It was just a common thing to have done up until I'd say like the past 10, 15-ish years, like it was an extremely common practice throughout the 80s, 90s, and 2000s to have a video game tie-in. And 90% of the time it ended up being shit. However, Star Wars is actually one of those that is a pretty interesting case, because it is one of the examples of a licensed video game franchise that has had moderate to very to huge success. Like, it had, granted, there are definitely some bad games, and we'll get to the bad, but in a weird way, Star Wars has had a pretty decent to good track record. And, well, compared to every other movie license, sort of, like every single movie franchise that has been licensed into a video game franchise, Star Wars is easily the largest out of all of them. I think the only other franchise that I can think of that started, or the only two that I can think of off the top of my head that started off as non video game franchises that blew up in video games, I would probably say would be both D&D and Warhammer. Those are like the closest two that have even came up, but even then, they don't hold a candle to the amount of Star Wars video games that have come out. And so, let's talk about that. And yes, I have tried to make sure to put in as many video game, like Star Wars video games, as I can on here. I did leave out all of the pinball games because, well, they would all just be the fucking same, first of all, and second of all, that's not really a video game. It's more of a simulation of a real life pinball, so I didn't want to really include any of those. There might be some other obscure games out there that I might have missed, but let it be known that every single game on here, at least everything that was on the Wikipedia article, it's all on here. So, and we're not going to pull any punches. Or at least for the ones that I have played. Because, again, this is going to be a bit of a slightly scuffed list, as I will just fully admit, I have not played everything on here. As a matter of fact, let me just make sure that I can get the tier list figured out, because unfortunately I did have to assemble this last second, so I apologize for that. So yeah, let me just get all the tierings working. But of course, before we get into this, and if you guys are new to this series, of course, this is a part of a series that I do on both YouTube and Twitch, where I pretty much rank a bunch of different topics. And, well, of course, we are talking about Star Wars video games, so I would say a good complimentary episode for this, of course, is our Star Wars films and shows tier list. If you guys haven't already checked that out, that is episode 30. So, yeah. But yeah, let me just edit this to make sure that it's here. So yeah, we're gonna do the same tierings that we did before. So the top tier is the chosen ones, then we've got Master, and then Knight, Padawan, Jar Jar Binks, and then an insult to gaming. And then we'll also add in haven't played. So yeah, well, I just need to reset this, right? There we go. And of course, keep in mind that this is all just my personal opinion. If you disagree with that, that is completely fine. As a matter of fact, I have started to finally re-upload all these tier lists on through my Discord, because I kind of forgot to do that. So if you guys want to, feel free to check out the Discord link in the link tree below, and you'll find the tab where I have all these tier lists posted. So yeah. But either way, we are going to begin. And I think what I want to do is I want to start off chronologically as far as the video game releases, which unfortunately is going to not be this order. So, but yeah, we're gonna start with the arcade games, and then the Atari games, and then the NES, and then Super Nintendo. I think that's what we'll do first, right? So these are the NES and then Super Nintendo. So basically everything that's more or less just adaptate, like just basically adapting the just the Star Wars movies. So, but yeah, no. Either way, I don't really have any rules. Like I said, the only thing I didn't add was pinball. So like that's kind of the only thing I didn't add. Everything else is fair game, so do keep that in mind. And I actually am also going to see if I can make this tier list a bit quick, because I've talked about plenty of these games in other tier lists, or I've even played them for you guys. So it should be pretty obvious where I'm going to be ranking some of these. So yeah, but in any event, let's get started. So, first of all, I'm just gonna preface this right now. I have actually played fairly recently. As a matter of fact, literally just this past Wednesday. I actually have played the original Atari Star Wars arcade game that was released, I think, in 1981 or 82, I believe. So this is the one with the Vexel graphics. Actually, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna go look up Star Wars 1982 arcade. 83. Okay, so this I actually fairly recently played this. So and by the way, I'm not gonna try to showcase too much gameplay because I don't want to get copyrighted with the music. But yeah, no, like this is the very first Star Wars game, ladies and gentlemen. Not interesting that they decided to do the most primitive 3D graphics you could do. Although to be fair though, it does match the movie, because they used similar graphics for the cockpit panels in both The New Hope and Empire. So not actually too inaccurate to the thing, which is pretty cool. And you know what? I actually kind of had fun with it. I'm actually going to put it at night. For the very first Star Wars game, it's actually not that bad. So if you can either emulate it, or you can find it somewhere in like a retro arcade place, you can check it out. It's a cool little flight sim sort of arcade experience. Definitely an interesting choice for sure. So yeah. Now that being said, though, unfortunately, I have not played the other arcade cabinets. I cannot comment on them. I can only really comment on the original. So, should we talk about the Atari games? Because I feel like I have to talk about. I mean, I did say chronological, so like, yeah, we have to talk about. I feel like these games later. So, and then I guess we can talk about these in between. Sure. All right. But yeah, what about the Atari counterparts? Well, yes, I have in fact played the Atari versions. I emulated them, to be fair. And well, I think it just really reinforces why I don't really care about a lot of games from before the Super Nintendo. Again, go watch last year's video game console tier list. It pretty much speaks for itself. But I'm just gonna put all these in Jar Jar, because I mean, I don't think these are insults to gaming. They have just aged poorly. That's just the problem. They're not like, for Atari standards, they're whatever, but like, come on. I mean, this here, right here, this is supposed to be the Atari 2600 version of this. So you can probably guess the disappointment is immeasurable. So, yeah. Also, let's not forget, infamously, we don't call this Empire Strikes Back. We called this Bird versus Camel. That's the only, that's what this game is. So, at least it's Bird versus Camel in my heart. So, Return of the Jedi, it's just kind of a weird take on the Death Star battle. It's whatever. And then old Jedi Arena, this barely even works. I don't even know what you're supposed to do in that game. So, yeah, no. Again, Atari games. What do you expect? Atari 2600 games. I don't know, man. I'm not gonna put it in insult. I'm not gonna put it in the lowest tier because that'd be weird. But I don't know. And then we got the NES games. I forgot about that other game. Okay, so weirdly enough, there are two different versions of A New Hope for NES. They never released Return of the Jedi for NES for some weird reason. I don't know why. Like, I mean, the thing is that a lot of these games from like the late 80s and early 90s, I mean, here's the thing to also keep in mind though. Star Wars was in a pretty dark point post Return of the Jedi. Like, people tend to forget that between 1984 and 1991, that was essentially the first dark age for Star Wars. There wasn't really a lot of content being made for those years, and the stuff that was being made was just really, really bad. And, well, that is pretty reflective of these next 5 games right here. These just were a part of an era of Star Wars that a lot of people just would rather forget about. But I guess we can talk about them. So, the NES versions of both A New Hope and Empire, they're okay. I mean, again, the NES just had a lot of shovelware, and I'm a huge critic of the NES shovelware. Granted, this is not the worst of that, but like... And this is an improvement compared to the Atari games, but not by much. So both of these I'm just going to give a C. I think Empire's a little bit cooler in that you can actually use your lightsaber in that game. Where you just only have like a kind of a shitty blaster. If that, in this first game. So because of that, yeah, it's just kind of awkward. So again, it's the NES. There's only so much I can talk about with the NES. That being said, though, like I said, this was not the only version that was released. There's also the Japanese Famicom version. I don't think I need to say more. You guys have probably seen it online, and yes, it is as bad as it sounds. It has nothing to do with the movies. Darth Vader turns into weird-ass animals throughout the game for no reason. You go to planets that have not been in any of the movies, if they are even canon planets to begin with, which I sincerely doubt. It's just bad. It's just a pretty bad experience. Need I say more, though? Everyone has already cooked this game, so I don't want to feel like I'm repeating myself. Alright, so these next two games, Star Wars Droids. I have not played this, but it looks awful. So I don't think I want to touch it. So, based off of one of the shitty animated shows from the 80s that, again, people would rather forget about. Which, fair enough. I've seen both of them, and they're awful. And, well, yeah. What else we got here? Is there anything else from, like... Oh, yeah, that's right. The Attack of the Death Star game. I've not played this either. This was another Japanese exclusive game, but it was on the... What was it? The XS, like, 6000, I think that's what it was called. The ZX 6000. I don't remember what it's called. It was that weird console that wasn't really a console. That was Japan only. So yeah, I haven't played that. However, I did play the Software Toolworks presents Star Wars Chess, and yes, they decided to make their logo bigger than the Star Wars logo. Fucking, these guys are really, like, what a bunch of assholes. I mean, that being said, though, I mean, it's just chess. It's just chess. Star Wars chess. You can just buy that physically. It's whatever. So, I don't really have anything else to say, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, truth be told, just a lot of these pre-Super Star Wars games, I frankly just don't have anything to say. Again, Star Wars video games, even by then, you can definitely, like, see there was a decent amount of Star Wars video games, even before the Super Star Wars collection, on Super Nintendo. But yeah, they weren't really anything to write home about. It wouldn't really be, like, since their inception around 1982, 1983, it would take a full decade before we would start seeing more consistently good Star Wars games. Even then, there were some growing pains here and there. But as far as what these early games represent, I at least am glad that these existed, because, well, these were the foundations for pretty much a few more Star Wars games. But yeah, no, let's move up to the actual games. So, okay, that sounds mean, but whatever, you get my point. So yeah, let's actually move up to talking about the games that at least matter more and are more relevant to the channel. So, first of all, we've got ourselves the Super Star Wars games. These were the Super Nintendo games that were full adaptations of the original trilogy, and this time they actually got all three of the movies here. So they didn't do the mistake that the NES did, where they skipped out on Return of the Jedi. They actually got Return of the Jedi this time. And these are actually pretty decent games. I'm not going to put them higher than a B tier or Knight, but these aren't actually that bad. They're hard as fuck, though. Do keep that in mind. These are very difficult games if you want to go through them. It has the bullshit enemy placements. The health bar tends to be kind of annoying with some of the bosses. But, well, thankfully there are difficulty sliders in the game, so that's not a huge deal. And plus, even despite how annoying some of the sections can be, I can say that these games were actually kind of a blast whenever I was playing them on my Super Nintendo. I thought that they were pretty fun, for the most part. Granted, I don't know if I would rank them individually because they're all pretty similar to each other, but the fact that they are pretty decent to go through, I think is a good enough of a recommendation for me. So, if you guys like side-scrolling action games and you want something like that but with Star Wars, the Super Star Wars games are actually pretty good in that regard. So, yeah. I think next up we're gonna also be talking about the other arcade games. So, which is going to be a bit anachronistic from how I want to do this, but keep in mind that These are the last of the original trilogy, like the games based off the original trilogy that strictly follow the movies. Because I pretty much most of the other games from this point onwards, they don't specifically follow the movies themselves. They follow their own storylines, except for like the Lego Star Wars games, but we'll get to that. But as far as the arcade games, excuse me, I would say OG Star Wars Arcade. Keep in mind, I played the Genesis version, so the one that was on the Sega CD, Sega Genesis, Sega CD, whatever. I think I'm gonna put this as the same as the Atari version. I think it's at least as good. It's definitely an upgrade, but I mean, there's only so much you can kind of like change up with that. So, but I'm actually gonna put Star Wars Trilogy up in Master, and we're gonna put Battle Pod also in Knight. So I have a weird history with Star Wars Trilogy Arcade. I remember as a kid playing this all the time at our local arcade. It was one of the games that I remember just constantly playing a lot. And it was this specific version. I do remember that. And I think this is, out of all the arcade Star Wars games, I think this is probably the best one. I mean, visually, I'd still think that, I mean, at least for a good while, it did hold up. I still think that the game still looks decent, but, you know, it's a 25-year-old arcade cabinet, so it was only a matter of time before they upgraded. But as far as this arcade cabinet, I guess it's just mostly nostalgia. I usually am not the most nostalgic person, but this is another one of those weird exceptions where it's like, yeah, I like this version personally, so yeah. But interestingly enough, again, BattlePod, that is the newest arcade cabinet on here. So technically speaking, it should be a better game. I guess just the last time I remember playing it, it was around 2017, so it was whenever it was fairly new. We just so happened to have gone into an arcade around that time, a different one. I just remember it not being as good. Like, I just remember getting stuck on it, and I don't know, maybe it was just a bad experience, but I guess I just kind of have a weird negative annoyance with this one, so that's why I'm gonna put it at Knight. It's a decent little thing, but yeah, no, I was just kind of annoyed with that. So, but yeah, I don't really have anything else to say, if I'm gonna be honest. So, yeah. That being said, though, this then begins our journey with the Star Wars games that are actually original storylines. So by 1993, we started to finally get Star Wars games that didn't strictly follow the movies. And I'm all for that, because, you know, it's an entire galaxy that you have. There's so much potential for storytelling they can have, which a lot of that potential was realized. And we started to finally get that around 1991 with the Thrawn trilogy and the sequel Star Wars trilogy. Those novels. The interest of Star Wars was starting to finally pick up again after that dark age in the mid 80s to early 90s. You can thank Timothy Zahn, I feel like, specifically, for bringing back Star Wars into a pretty good spot. And, well, obviously we already talked about that with the Super Star Wars games and even some of the arcade games. But, again, we started to see other original content based on the Star Wars universe around this time. And by 1993, we were introduced to Star Wars X-Wing. So I'm not actually going to take too much time talking about these games because we talked about them in our Caspian Game Awards. But all I'm gonna say is, I definitely think that both X-Wing and TIE Fighter hold up to this day. I'm actually gonna put both of these in Master tier. I think they're both as equally good. Some of the coolest flight simulators of their era. Some of the first fully 3D games of their era as well, which is unheard of for 1993. So that's pretty cool. I mean, yeah, there's like the voxel graphics, but those weren't fully textured. These games were. And that was a game changer for a lot of things. And also, this was even the beginnings of some general loose storylines being told in these types of games, which again was also unheard of. So, yeah, no, these games I think are pretty cool. And also, these games support extra like peripheral controllers. Typically, if you wanted to play these types of games, you had to you were intended to buy like a huge, basically like a flight stick rig. Actually, let me see if I can find a let me see if I can find. Oh yeah, like back in the day, you were supposed to look for something like this. So obviously these are more modern versions, but yeah, these were hardcore simulators. There was a casual mode, but unfortunately you were only restricted to the like certain areas if you turned on certain cheats, so you had to still complete them as the game intended. But yeah, no, surprisingly, these games I think hold up. And they're a good sort of counterbalance between each other, because I mean obviously X-Wing is the good guys, TIE Fighter is the bad guys, and so you get both perspectives, and that's pretty cool. So yeah, no, check them out. And you know what? These sequels that came out in the late 90s, not too bad either. X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. I think I am going to put this one in a B tier, specifically because this was actually one of the first multiplayer only games. And while, you know, this would be basically a huge trendsetter in a lot of ways, it definitely feels like there is a lack of content. At least for someone like me who prefers playing single player games, and also, well, this is a 27-year-old game. Actually 28-year-old game, holy shit. And so I sincerely doubt that there are a lot of people playing this game. So, which is why the Steam version has the Forces of Corruption expansion, which, by the way, expect any game that has an expansion pack to just be a part of the game itself here. So, and we'll get to that later with a few other games. But yeah, Forces of Corruption is essentially the single player-ish expansion, which is the version that is sold on Steam. And it's fine, but I don't think it's as good as the first two games in this subseries. That's just me, though. And then we got ourselves X-Wing Alliance, which I think brings it back up to the to a higher knight, lower master. I think I'm actually going to put it at a higher knight. Improved graphics, generally better, smoother gameplay, a lot more forgiving gameplay. I just think that there's some more modern day technical problems that you can run into with X-Wing Alliance. So, and also admittedly, I haven't played this one as much as these other games, so admittedly I'm not as experienced, but from what I played I did like. So yeah, no, X-Wing Alliance, kind of a decent last hurrah. It's kind of weird that they never made a fifth game, but I don't know, it is what it is. But then that brings us to, and by the way, yes, I am putting these other games on standby as we continue talking about these. But yeah, that then brings us to Rebel Assault. And, well, I am not a fan of these games. These are more so on rails shooter style of games, but also kind of interactive movies. It's kind of a weird hybrid between rail shooter and interactive movies. And, well, if you guys remember on our last tier list, the horror games tier list, you guys know that I am not a big fan of interactive movie games. And, well, in the specific case of this first Rebel Assault game, is actually kind of insulting how bad the controls are in this game. Like, it's indefensible. I'm sorry, but, like, yeah, this is, in my opinion, one of the worst Star Wars games ever. It's bad, people. It's borderline unplayable in the modern age. And because, like, you will run into walls constantly when you're in the vehicle sections. It is so agonizing. It is extremely broken in the worst ways possible, and I genuinely hated the experience. So I do not play Rebel Assault. It is bad. And, well, unfortunately, I've got similar things to say about Rebel Assault 2. Granted, it is definitely an improvement, but not by much. I'm going to put it in the Jar Jar Binks category. Like, it... And also, these games are very short, too. They're only, like, maybe 2 hours. And that's kind of insulting for the type of game that this is. I mean, maybe for 1995... for 93 and 95 respectively, which is when both these games came out. I mean, that... I guess that's kind of around the range. I don't know. I guess my point is that I would not pay 40 or 50 bucks for either of these games. That's my point. So, I don't know, man. I guess I'm just not... Like, I don't know. As far as on-rails interactive movies are concerned, these are just another example of just why I don't like that type of genre. In my opinion, they just barely count as games. So, yeah. Alright, are there any other games that came out before that? Okay, I don't think there is. I am just trying to make sure everything is on standby, so hopefully I'm not forgetting anything. Okay, yeah, we're good. Alright, next up, we're gonna move on to Dark Forces and slash Jedi Knight. Because, yes, this is one of those things where the sub-series completely changed its name. Somehow. And... yeah, this is an interesting series for me because, well... I think all these games... This is when Star Wars games, at least in my opinion, started to really, really get good. Is around the mid-90s. I mean, yeah, Rebel Assault was kind of but, like, as we saw with X-Wing and TIE Fighter, I thought those games were pretty good. And if I'm going to be honest, Dark Forces, and, well, followed up by Jedi Knight 1, Dark Forces 2. That's what it's called, Dark Forces 2. I actually really like these games, probably more than I should. Because, I mean, with Dark Forces, and by the way, this game just recently got remastered, which is awesome. But even just playing the original version of this game, I mean, it's basically just Star Wars Doom. But I like that. I like how it's just Star Wars Doom. So, I don't know, I'm gonna put this in A tier. Or Master tier. I think it actually holds up. And, well, same thing with Jedi Knight. Which, in this game's case, it's basically Star Wars Quake. And I fucking love Quake. You guys know that's one of my favorite games ever. So to have a Star Wars version of that is pretty awesome as well. And so, yeah, I'm going to put this also in Master. But here's the weird part. And this is something I even mentioned on both our retro shooter tier list and our Caspian Game Awards. These are some of the first FPS games that actually had a narrative tied to the gameplay. That was just not a thing. People give credit to Half-Life as being the first game that did that, but or the first FPS game to do that. It's really not. It's actually, ironically enough, Dark Forces and Jedi Knight. Although in Jedi Knight's case, that one's kind of a weird hybrid game because that one has it starts off as being a first-person shooter, but you can change it into a third-person shooter and even a hack and slash because you get a lightsaber halfway through the game. Actually, no, not even halfway through the game. Literally, like in the first fourth of the game. So, but again, the fact that both of these games are pretty versatile as far as their gameplay, I think is pretty cool. So, but yeah, no, I would definitely say that Jedi Knight is pretty good. And now that being said, it unfortunately will never be made canon, considering that this is the first Star Wars game, at least to my knowledge, that does take place after Return of the Jedi. And well, this game starts leading into the Dark Empire narrative, so do keep that in mind, is that unfortunately this would be no longer canon under the Disney thing, because again, Star Wars came under Disney's watch since 2012, and pretty much everything that was made before 2014 was made no longer canon, and that sucks. That being said, though, I do think that both of these games are pretty fantastic. Now, that being said, that then leads us to a bit of another time jump to 2002 and 3 respectively. We've got ourselves Jedi Knight 2 as well as Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. This is gonna probably piss some people off, but keep in mind that this just comes from ignorance. Because I've actually have not beaten Jedi Knight 2. I have beaten Dark Forces and Jedi Knight 1, but I've not beaten Jedi Knight 2. I have played it, though. And from what I've played, keep in mind, this is what I've played. I know. I know. A lot of people consider this to be one of the best Star Wars games of all time. I get that. And I do like the game, at least somewhat. But I guess I just don't know if I like the way in which the shooting works in this game. It's a bit weaker than I wish it should have been. Or at least compared to the first two games. It just doesn't feel as good. I don't know, it just feels like a lot of your shots are weaker in the game. And I don't know, I feel like with this game there's a lot, it's also a lot more awkward to set up. I mean, to be fair though, Jedi Knight 1 was kind of awkward to try to set up also on modern systems, because I had to download a bunch of different patches. I was never able to figure out like the best way to be able to play Jedi Knight 2 on more modern hardware. So admittedly, that being said though, I do think it is up here somewhere. Actually, yeah, let me just, yeah, usually I don't do this type of stuff, but yeah, no, I think I'm gonna put those there. Guess this is better. That's better. Sure. Those are equally bad. But I don't know. I guess for me, I guess I just don't like the way in which this game plays in comparison, because it's a bit slower. It's not like a quick clone anymore. I mean, if anything, it actually plays more in line with something like Red Faction. So just without the destructible terrain. So, I don't know. It's just not really... In comparison, I guess it's just a bit of a letdown. For me, personally. Now, that being said, that then leads us to Jedi Academy, which this game is like highly revered as being one of the best games in the Star Wars franchise, if not one of the best games of all time. But here's the thing, and this is the explanation as to why I didn't even nominate this for any category in the Caspian Game Awards. Or at least I don't remember ever nominating it in the Caspian Game Awards. I'm going to double check that right now. But I think a lot of people were kind of wondering why I didn't really acknowledge Jedi Academy. Yeah, I had it as an honorable mention. Well, there's a reason for that. I haven't gotten to play it yet. So, because what my original plan was is that I wanted to finish Jedi Knight 2 first, then get into Jedi Academy. I know it's technically a spin-off, which is weird because, well, I mean, it's a spin-off of a spin-off, which is just like, what? But I wanted to at least get the full context of what was going on in this game by playing the first 3 games before getting into Jedi Academy. That's why I haven't played it yet. Though, if this is any indicator, I don't know if I'm going to like this game as much. That being said, though, this game looks like it's a lot more focused on the lightsaber aspect of these games rather than the shooting stuff. And if that's going to be the case, then who knows? But as of right now, I actually have not played it yet, so do keep that in mind. Alright, so let me look at these other games. I don't think there's any other pre-Phantom Menace games on here. I could be wrong, though. Oh, well, yeah, there's Rogue Squadron, which we'll talk about that in its own thing. But yeah, no, I think those are all of the... Oh, yeah, look, okay, I guess we'll just lump all these into the sort of miscellaneous... Okay, well, that's still, like, kind of... Whatever. Alright, let's talk about the rest of the... Let's talk about the rest of the pre-Phantom Menace standalone games. So, the Shadows of the Empire. This came out on both the N64 as well as PC. I actually played the PC version. This one's awkward. Because I like some of the concepts of Shadow of the Empire. There's some things that it does right. Like, for example, the beginning mission with Hoth. I think that is a fantastic level. And pretty much any sort of vehicle section in the game, I think, is pretty good. I just don't know if I like the ground combat. It's so awkward. It's not terrible. You can kind of get a general sense of where you're supposed to aim, because this is essentially like a third-person shooter. That's kind of what it is. But it's an awkward third-person shooter because there's no aiming reticle, and some of the powers can be kind of annoying. I actually beat this game in like 2 hours. I beat this in a short amount of time that I was almost considering just refunding it. I don't think I did, but yeah, like, did I end up... No, I still have it on my Steam. So, and it's fine. Like, but like, there's some sections that just do straight up suck. Again, most of the time whenever you're on the ground, that tends to be kind of annoying. And also, the one vehicle section that sucks absolute dick. The fucking... Okay, maybe not that. Like, it just completely sucks ass. The fucking speeder bike section on Tatooine. That shit sucks so fucking bad. Like, oh my god, I fucking hated that section. So, and also, I don't like how this game has multiple endings that are based off of what difficulty you play on. That shit actually does piss me off. So, yeah, I'm gonna put this in a C tier. It has good ideas. I don't think it's as bad as some people made it out to be, but it's got its problems. It's got massive problems, and you can kind of see why this sort of project ended up fading away after a while. It's just, again, another awkward sort of game, so, but it is what it is. So, alright. Oh no, the shitty fighting game. Oh no. Masters of Terras Kasai. Or Terra Kasai, whatever the fuck it's called. Actually, funny enough, I have not played this. But I kind of refuse to play it. Because, I mean, to be fair, you're talking to someone who's not really a big fighting fan to begin with. But this game, I've heard, is infamous. Amongst one of the worst fighting games ever. One of the worst Star Wars games ever. One of the worst games, period. I refuse to play it because of that. So, that's all I gotta say. But there's another game that came out around this time period that I think actually kinda... Oh, wait, okay, before we talk about that, I kind of forgot about one other game. Fucking Yoda Stories. God damn it, why did I forget about this game? So, I mean, thankfully I didn't do it, but whatever. Okay, Yoda Stories. This is another weird game. It's... I'm just gonna put it in Jar Jar Binks. It's not really a game. It's just a time waster. I don't know, like... This was intended to basically kind of be one of those games that you just kind of play whenever you're doing like a menial task. It's like a distraction game. That's essentially what it is. Like, it's kind of an action-adventure, Zelda-like, but not really. And, well, it doesn't really have anything to do with Yoda, and every world is pretty much randomly generated, so, well, good luck trying to find your missions. It's just kind of an awkward sort of thing. I don't even know what to call it. So, it's just not for me. Alright, now let's talk about the game that I think flew under a lot of people's radars, that I actually think is pretty underrated. Star Wars Rebellion. A grand strategy Star Wars game. Yes, a full-on grand strategy Star Wars game. Actually, I think this is one of the first of its kind. Which, again, going back to what I was talking about with both X-Wing and Dark Forces, a lot of Star Wars games, ironically, tended to be pretty innovative. A lot of people don't give a lot of Star Wars games or just LucasArts credit. They thought outside the box. Although, was this specifically a LucasArts? I know they obviously published it, but what about the game itself? Okay, Cool Hand Interactive was the ones who made the game. Looks like that might have been their only... That was their only game. Damn, because this game actually is not that bad. It is a bit complicated. I am going to put this as a night tier. Though I actually do kind of have an interesting story about this game. So, I randomly bought this game around one of the May the 4th sales. I think around 20... It was around either 2020 or 2021. No. It was 2020. I remember. Because I was trying to... That was whenever I was finally starting to build the massive collection you guys see back there. Well, while I was staying at my other cousin's house, I actually discovered this. And this is honestly one of the coolest things that I found. The complete official guide to Star Wars Rebellion. Yeah, it has everything that you need to know about the game. So you got like unit types right here. You've got different, you know, facility types right there. You've got learning how to move around planetary sectors. Like, this is a full-on like guide that they just randomly had. Because keep in mind, they were huge Star Wars fanatics for the longest time. I don't know if they are anymore, but yeah, they let me keep this, and I appreciate them doing that. So I'm pretty thankful that they gave this to me, basically, essentially as like kind of a Christmas gift, even though by that point I stopped celebrating Christmas. But yeah, no, like that I think is pretty awesome. So that's something that actually does, weirdly enough, kind of help me as far as being able to play this game. But, well, that then leads me into, well, the problem is that this is definitely the type of game that's more so for a specific crowd. Keep in mind, you're talking to someone who does play a decent amount of Hearts of Iron and Stellaris anyways, so this is a type of game that I'm already familiar with anyways. I was already playing Hearts of Iron years prior, so yeah. Also, what the fuck is this new interface? Oh my god, this is ugly as fuck on my phone. God, UI, stop changing every goddamn year. Okay, I'm sorry. This fucking bullshit. What the Ew! Ew! Okay, I'm not gonna show my phone because I don't want to like compromise anything. Oh, God, okay. Samsung, stop changing your UI. Anyways, Star Wars Rebellion, decent game, underrated. Go check it out. Now let's move on to talking about the Rogue Squadron games. And, well, I'm gonna be kind of weird about this because I do think that these games are actually pretty awesome in their own right. I'm gonna put Rogue Squadron 1 in A tier, as well as Rogue Squadron 2. Rogue Squadron 3 I'm gonna put in a B tier. Rogue Squadrons 2 and 3 are kind of awkward because they are GameCube exclusives. So do keep that in mind. They never released these games on PC or any other system. So that's unfortunate. But they did release Rogue Squadron on PC, I think around, what, 2012 is when that port came out, or at least the version that's on Steam. And as far as, I mean, these are also flight games, but they're not the same as the... Oh, this actually came out on PC for... Okay, whatever. Whatever the version that's on Steam, that came out fairly recently. But, yeah, I actually think these games are pretty fun. I don't know, I just think they're cool little action flight games that are not in the same vein as the X-Wing or TIE Fighter games. They are definitely a lot more arcadey compared to those, but they're still fun regardless. And I do like how they do take some liberties going into some of the material from the books and the comics, because there's another series that does that. Rogue Squadron, explicitly for half the game, you actually go into the Dark Empire storyline. So that's pretty cool. And I don't know, it's just, these games are just kind of cool. Sue me. So, and I don't know, I guess Rogue Squadron 2, again, I'm not as experienced with that one, so I'm not gonna really say too much about that. But it's, from what I've played, it is decent, but I definitely can see why that one is kind of forgotten compared to at least Rogue Squadron 1. I don't know, it just sucks that Rogue Squadron 1 is like the only like accessible one. I don't know, that just kind of low-key sucks. Alright. Now let's talk about the foray of Phantom Menace games. Because we finally reached the oh so dear year of our Lord, as everyone knows. It's 1999! And we finally reached talking about Star Wars Episode 1 games, or at least games that are somewhat related to Episode 1. From 1999 to 2002, there were a plethora of these types of games, many of which in varying quality. So, yeah, let's that going. So yeah, it was pretty much an epidemic of these types of games at the time. And well, funny enough, I've not played every single one of them. But the ones that I have played, they're whatever. So, there was a direct movie tie-in game for Phantom Menace that was released on the PlayStation 1. It's whatever. It's a C tier. It's not a terrible Star Wars game. It's just kind of bland. I don't know. It's just not really all that worth talking about. I mean, you're talking to someone who really doesn't like Phantom Menace to begin with. So naturally, I'm not really going to care. Weirdly enough, there was a weird life sim that was made that same year. Which I guess kind of takes place after the events of Phantom Menace, kind of regrowing a lot of the stuff that's on Naboo's moon. I played a little bit of it. Again, it's another really annoying game to try to set up. But, yeah, what is it called? It's called Gungan something. What is it called? Gungan Frontier. It's a weird game. And it's kind of weird talking about non-Maxis sim games. This is one of those few examples of that. I mean, I can see the appeal, but considering how hard it was to try to set up, and also just kind of weird in general this game was, I'm gonna put it in C tier. It just doesn't feel like a Star Wars game, like at all. I don't know. It's awkward. It's weird. That's all I gotta say. Jedi Power Battles. Funny enough, this just came out on it just had a re-release on consoles, and I'm pretty sure it even had a PC release recently. Right? Or was it just consoles? It might have just been consoles. Was it just consoles? It was... No, it had a piece... What? Oh, it might be on the stupid Xbox store. Okay. Either that or it may be on GG. It's definitely not on Steam. I don't see it on... Wait, it is on Steam. Steam, what the fuck? I literally looked this up. You goddamn imbecile. Whatever. Anyways, so this is now on PC. This was originally a PlayStation 1 exclusive. Honestly, it's really not that different from Episode 1, at least gameplay-wise. It's just kind of another beat-em-up style of game. It's okay, I guess. So, I'll put this in a C tier. So yeah. Alright. Battle of Naboo. I'm not gonna lie. This is another one that I just have not played yet, so I haven't played it. So I can't really comment on it. Though from what I can tell, it looks like it's not that different from Rogue Squadron. So I might like it, though. Yeah, it looks like the PC reviews were unfortunate, so that might be a problem. So I don't know. I just haven't tried it yet. All right. Now we're starting to get into okay, should I Okay, I think I'm going to reserve this here for just general. No, okay, we'll talk about it. This is a Game Boy Color game, right? Was it Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance? I don't remember. It's Star Wars Obi-Wan's Adventures. The Game Boy Color game, okay. Yeah, I'm not playing. So I was thinking, did I play this? No, I did not. So I don't want to feel like I don't want to lie to you guys. So yeah, I didn't play it. I can emulate it, and I could download it, and just put it on my Super Nintendo. I don't know if that would be a good idea to play it, but I theoretically could. So, but yeah. That being said, I did play this Obi-Wan game. It's bad. It's Jar Jar. Lower Jar Jar. It's kind of another sort of prequel game. Excuse me. And it is just one of the most awkward games that I have ever controlled. This was, again, a weird Xbox exclusive game. My cousins actually owned this game for some reason. And I remember this being an absolute slog to play through. It was genuinely awful. The combat didn't really work. The storyline didn't really make any sense. It was just a bad game. And I don't know, did we really need a game that was specifically focused on Obi-Wan as an apprentice? I mean, well, okay, that's not even a bad concept, but just the execution was just not very good. So I don't know, it's just weird. So, and also it's another sort of it's also kind of a weird remake-ish of this episode 1 game. I don't know. It's an awkward game. Don't play it. Don't play it. But yeah, I think those are the. I think that was the last of like the episode 1 specific games. I mean, there's a few other games that were kind of around, but we'll get to those later. We'll obviously talk about Racer in a little bit, but yeah, as far as everything else, yeah, I think these are just kind of miscellaneous. Yeah, these are miscellaneous Star Wars games that do feature Phantom Menace characters, but aren't exclusively Phantom Menace. Star Wars Demolition. This is basically Twisted Metal Star Wars. I mean, you're talking to someone who doesn't really like some Twisted Metal, not because of the gameplay, it's because of the aesthetics. The gameplay is definitely fun, but I don't like the look of the game. So, I guess I'll put this in a C tier. It's decent, even if the balancing is kind of awkward, and certain vehicles are definitely better than others. But, yeah, it's fine. I don't know, I guess I'm just kind of awkward as well about these types of games where it's different vehicle. It's like, you know, a lot of the same character fighting each other. You know, like stuff like hero shooters. It's just so awkward for me. Same thing with these sort of like action, like combat vehicle games, especially if they have named characters. I don't know. This is kind of awkward for me. Oh no. Another awful, awful, awful Star Wars game. Which thankfully I have not played, and I refuse to play, even more so than Terra Kasai. I'm willing to play Terra Kasai. I am not willing to play this garbage. Don't even make me. Super Bombad Racing? More like Super Bombad dog shit. I'm not playing that. It looks fucking ugly as hell. No thank you. But yeah, let's jump back in time a little bit and let's talk about... Let's go back to Phantom Menace, but let's talk about the pod racing stuff. So, pod racing. Okay, Phantom Menace is... I've talked about this obviously in our Star Wars film slash television tier list. There's a multitude of reasons why I'm not a big fan of Phantom Menace. And why even as a kid I thought that movie was boring. But the pod racing scene admittedly was one of those scenes that I'm just mixed on. I don't know. I've gained more of an appreciation for racing content because of a certain somebody. So like I guess I'm a bit more open-minded now. I still don't think I like Phantom Menace. I still think that movie is fucking boring as hell, and well, in a lot of ways, absolutely unnecessary. But weirdly enough, I did also buy this Star Wars racing game, like this, yeah, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. That's what it was called. On Steam. I had a lot of fun with it. It's actually a good game. It's a good racing game. I even gave it I think I mentioned it in our 1999 Caspian Game Awards. I think I gave it a nomination for best racing fighting, like... No, I didn't. I gave it an honorable mention because there were already so many. Yeah, there were 1999 was already a pretty stacked year, so like it would have been buried. But no, this is a good game. I actually will even put it in an A tier. So I think I gained more of an appreciation of the pod racing scene, specifically for playing this game, and I think it's because, well, this game takes place on so many different tracks and different planets. It's not specifically the one track that you do see in the movie, which that's awesome. Hell, you don't even need to play as Anakin. You can play pretty much a host and variety of different characters in this. Or at least if you're playing the PC version of the game. N64 is a bit more limited, but there's still a pretty good variety. Don't play the Game Boy Color version, though. Game Boy Color version's trash. But the N64, if you like that controller, or the PC version, it will suffice. So, and I think that it's actually a pretty good racing game. I kind of regret not putting it in our best sports racing fighting nominations. So yeah, it's cool. As for these others, funny enough, there actually was another arcade game on here. So I kind of lied. There was another arcade game. Racer Arcade was the game. It is not the same as Episode 1 Racer. These are two different games. One of them is a lot more customizable, while the other one is strictly an arcade thing, and it has different tracks. I'm gonna put this one in like the same tier as I put most of the other arcade games. I don't know. I guess I'm just not like a huge arcade guy, so I do think that this is definitely inferior. I kind of wish that it had a lot more of that variety. And admittedly, this is kind of the same complaint that I have with Guitar Hero Arcade. If you guys remember that, is that that's essentially an arcade version of Guitar Hero 3. Problem is, it doesn't have the full track list, so you can't actually play whatever song you want from that game. It's the same thing with Racer Arcade. You can't just choose whatever racing track you want. And that's kind of annoying. It's just a gimped version of a game. So, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense why arcade cabinets don't do that. Like, we're, like, you know, like, even by the early 2000s, you would think that they would have a lot more horsepower to be able to run more tracks than that. But I guess not. I mean, there's even less of an excuse for Guitar Hero Arcade, but that's a whole other conversation I don't want to have right now. But as far as the game itself, it's fine. That said, I've not played Racer Revenge. This is the sequel to Episode 1 Racer. I did hear that it was kind of inferior, though, so I'm not going to have my hopes up super high. Yeah, I don't even have it on my shelf. That's like one of the few Star Wars games I don't have on my shelf that I'm at least somewhat interested in. So, dang. That's awkward. Okay. Before we start getting into the Attack of the Clones related games, oh, that's right. There's these RTS games. Yeah, we'll talk about the RTS games, I feel like, first. Because this one came out in 2000, Force Commander. I have not played Force Commander. This was the first Star Wars RTS game. I have unfortunately heard really, really bad things about it. I've heard it's one of the worst Star Wars games, period. So, and also it's one of those games I can tell it's kind of hard to set up on modern systems anyways. So, yeah. So, yeah. That said, we are going to talk about these other games. So Galactic Battlegrounds. This is essentially just Star Wars Age of Empires. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure this was not only on the same engine, but even made by Ensemble themselves. And then, of course, distributed by LucasArts. No, it was not. Okay, it was on the same engine, though. It was, okay, it was in-house by LucasArts. That's cool. Actually, no, we'll see. Still talk about this. I'm gonna put this in Master. If you like Age of Empires, and you like Star Wars, you're gonna like Galactic Battlegrounds. I mean, I think it's a pretty cool game. And hell, even adding in the Clone Wars expansion for this, that adds a lot of content from Episode 2, was pretty awesome. Hell, this game, even in its base form, it actually does contain Episode 1 content, which is interesting, because, yeah, it contains both Episode 1 and original trilogy content, and then, well, Clone Campaigns expansion pack came out in 2002, obviously coinciding with the movie, and that ends in Clone Wars based content, and that's pretty cool in and of itself. So if you like that, there you go. And then we're going to do a bit of a time jump. We're going to talk about Empire at War, since that's the last sort of RTS game we've got here. Ooh, okay. Is this going to be our first chosen one? I mean, it's definitely at least Master. It's, in my opinion, one of the best Star Wars games ever. Is it up in chosen one, though? No, but it's still really good. So, this is another RTS darling. Actually, funny enough, did play this back in 2020 or 2019, 2020, just a random day on Twitch. I don't exactly remember why I chose this game specifically. I do have a lot of fun with this game, though I will admit the grand campaign that's with this game, where you fight like throughout the galaxy, kind of similar to Star Wars Rebellion, but on a much more simplified scale. That can be a bit annoying to try to like move around. It's not as cohesive as something like Hearts of Iron or Stellaris or Star Wars Rebellion. It's a lot more micromanaging than it should be. But that's like my only complaint. I think that the actual ground battles themselves are pretty fun. Whether you're playing through with the campaign or if you're just playing through on like a small skirmish match, I think this game is pretty fun in that regard. And yeah, it does kind of suck that it is limited to the original trilogy era. I kind of wish that there was like a Clone Wars era, like an official one. I know there's mods, but it's still pretty cool regardless. All right, now let's talk about Star Wars Starfighter and Jedi Starfighter. Star Wars Starfighter, I have very limited experience with, but from what I played, it's not very good. It's kind of basically just a first-person version of Rogue Squadron, but like kind of not a very good version. It's pretty average. Yeah, I'd put it in a C tier. It's really nothing to write home about. Jedi Starfighter, I've not played. I heard that it is infinitely better, but I can't comment, so yeah. Now, let's talk about all of the Episode 2 related games. And there's a decent amount of those. More than you would think. So let's wait, did I wait? I forgot a game already. I just realized that. Oh my god. I already forgot a game. Okay. I'm gonna work on that. Give me a second. So how the fuck did I forget? That's a pretty big game. What the fuck? I feel embarrassed about that. Okay. So yeah, while I work on this, I'm gonna talk about the direct tie-in game, which, funny enough, this is actually the only game, to my knowledge, that isn't actually a like, it's the only one that never got released on mainline like consoles. Which is interesting, because you would have thought that it was sorry, like, but yeah, no, like, it's interesting because, oh shoot, I chose the wrong thing. So it's interesting because well, pretty much everything else was on a dedicated console, but this wasn't. So yeah, I don't know. That being said, though, this game wasn't very good. It's Jar Jar Binks. GBA, I like the GBA, but there was a decent amount of shovelware that was on there. So yeah, this is just another one example of those. And truth be told, there was actually a sequel game to this called New Droid Army that came out. It was Not much better. Again, these were just made to cash in on the prequel hype at the time. So, not much else I can really say about either of those, other than, well, they existed. So, yeah. Now, that being said, though, let me just add in the fucking game that I forgot about and I feel really stupid about because I literally have it on my shelf. So, God. But anyways, so, but let's talk about Star Wars Bounty Hunter first. This game pretty much is a Jango Fett backstory game, essentially. It pretty much follows Jango Fett as he it basically kind of explains the whole like clone thing, as well as Jango Fett's involvement with the events leading up to episode 2. It's actually pretty decent. I'm gonna put it in a night. It does have awkward controls, and they did completely change the controls on the re-release version of this. So do keep in mind which version of this you're going to like play. But yeah, no, rest assured, not bad. And I've got very similar things to talk about with this Clone Wars game, which I totally did not just forget to talk about. It's actually also going to be a night. I think it's actually a pretty decent, cool action adventure sort of game that pretty much follows up on the events of episode 2, leading into some of the earliest battles of the Clone Wars. Just kind of on a more grounded setting compared to the clone campaigns of Galactic Battlegrounds, so I think that's pretty cool. So, yeah. Yeah, and then we've got all these weird games here. Though, yeah, we've got these other GBA games here, and then Star Wars Galaxies. I feel so bad because I have not played any of these. So yeah, Flight of the Falcon and Apprentice of the Force. These were original trilogy games that were released on the GBA, but I've not gotten to them yet. I do have them on my Super Nintendo emulator, so I can play them whenever I want. I just haven't played them yet. And Star Wars Galaxies, the first Star Wars MMO, and I've not played it yet. I feel this was just before like I got into PC gaming too. Like right before I, got into PC gaming. Like just a year later, bam, gone. So yeah, that annoys me so much because I've heard a lot of people share a lot of fond memories with this because this was again the first Star Wars MMO, and there was so much stuff that was made in this. I feel so annoyed. And the worst part is that there is a fan version of this game that has been put online. Problem is, you need a physical copy of the game. And I can't find physical copies for a reasonable price. So, yeah, like, this one I'm so annoyed with. I'm so pissed I wasn't able to play this for you guys. So, but unfortunately, I guess that just kind of showcases that MMOs are kind of, unfortunately, a not great thing. So, yeah, suffice to say, yeah. But anyways, sorry, I'm just kind of looking at this. All right. Well, we've reached KOTOR territory. So I'm not gonna really spend too much time talking about Knights of the Old Republic or Old Republic, because it should be pretty obvious where I'm going to be putting these. As a matter of fact, Knights of the Old Republic, this is going to be the first one we're going to put in Chosen One. If I didn't put it in Chosen One, I already would have gotten death threats. I will say it is not my favorite style of combat in RPG, but as far as RPGs are concerned, this is obviously one of the best of its kind. It's easily one of the best Star Wars games, period, as far as lore building, as far as general storytelling, locations, even establishing a completely new era within Star Wars itself, establishing the Old Republic era, and specifically in this case, the Jedi Civil War. And also, this was the game that brought us one of the best characters of all time, Darth motherfucking Revan. He's become, honestly, one of my favorite Star Wars characters ever. I even have a Funko Pop bobblehead of him on that shelf right there. So, you know that this game has impacted a lot of people, including me. And so, like, it's pretty obvious that this is, like, one of the best Star Wars games, period. I'm not even going to argue with anyone on that. Hell, I'll even say this about KOTOR 2. This is also a master game. Not as good as Chosen Ones. It had a rocky development history. Is a notorious story. It has been documented. Full-on documentaries have been made on how much of a shit fest trying to develop this game was. Go look up any documentary on YouTube about it. It is honestly one of the most fascinating stories. But even the gameplay itself, it is pretty much the same as KOTOR 1, but it has a completely different story. It focuses on the Sith side of that. It talks about sort of a civil war that's going on within the Sith, and also just fleshes out a lot of the universe that, like the Star Wars universe of old, just a few years after the events of KOTOR 1, and it's honestly like one of the most philosophically driven, one of the best philosophically driven games that is out there. So absolutely deserves its due diligence. Then that leads us to Old Republic, which is the MMO. Thankfully, this one is still up and running, so I was able to play this. It's basically the same. It's basically just Star Wars WoW. So if you like World of Warcraft, but you want something that's a bit more sci-fi, this is probably going to be up your alley. I'm only going to be putting it up to night, though. I do love this game's art direction. Or at least the trailer's art direction. It's unfortunately not translated as well in game, but it still has pretty decent art direction. I like a lot of the characters. The gameplay I think is okay for what it is. I've definitely seen MMOs do its gameplay a lot better. The fact that this is still one of the most expensive games of all time is just insane to me. But I do think that as far as being a loose successor to the KOTOR storyline, obviously taking place 300 years after the events of both KOTOR games, does lead some credence of, storytelling. And I think they did some decent stuff here and there, even though what they did with Revan pretty much divided a lot of people. But that's not anything here nor there. So, all right. I think before we get into the Revenge of the Sith sort of category, I guess, which I guess we're already kind of doing anyways, we're going to take a detour and we're going to talk about the plug-and-play games. Yes, for those who don't know, in the 2000s, there was a massive trend of basically dedicated consoles to specific games. This was just a huge trend that was back in the 2000s where during an era where um there was a lot of there was a lot of technological innovations being made as far as digital entertainment, and there were a lot of fads and trends that came around. um One of the ones that I remember are all the portable DVD players. That was one that I definitely remember as a kid. Well, another one of those trends that I remember as a kid was the plug and play games, where you literally plug in these dedicated gaming devices into your big screen TVs, and you got a selective assortment of different games. I remember having the Namco ones that were released back in the day, along with a SpongeBob one and a Scooby Doo one. This was before I learned better. I never owned these Star Wars ones, but I did remember playing at least these first two. So these first two, this one is based off the original trilogy. This one's based off Revenge of the Sith. Um, these were just, it's awkward because these games. Oh no, I think I hear a little Miss Precious. So give me a second. Little Miss Precious wants to be on the stream. I mean, at least you're. Oh, I don't know. You and Mr. Grumpy Pants. I swear. I swear. All right, here we go. Dedicated cat portion of the stream. Oh shoot! Oh shoot! Oh shoot! Don't do that! Don't do that! She does not like being held, and I guess she's still kind of afraid being on camera. Rosemary. Rosemary. God, my hair has been kind of whack today. I'm sorry. Rosemary. What are you doing? What are you doing? Come here. Come here. Hey. Hey, 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 hey. It's okay. It's okay. There you go. Calm, kitty. There you go. There you go. Look. Hey, yeah. Look at the camera. Say hi. Hi. Oh my goodness. Okay. I don't trust you because... Okay, don't do that. She almost... Fuck, she almost cut my throat. That actually is bad. Don't do that, please. Yeah, we need to put her claw caps back on. Okay, I think I'm good. That was just really weird. Anyways, so okay, but anyways, yes. So I did play these. Unfortunately, as what I was trying to say is that these were basically the equivalent of like Super Nintendo games, but not good Super Nintendo games. And keep in mind, this wasn't like this wasn't like the GBA where it was a portable console. No, these were kind of treated like normal consoles for some weird reason. Because, I mean, they were better than, like, the Tiger Electronics games or, like, those shitty, you know... I don't even call them video games. I don't even know what you call those. Like, they were better than that, but, like, not by much. Like, they at least had playability, but, like, don't expect to be playing these for longer than, like, I don't know, like, half an hour. That's kind of what these types of games were, and it didn't help that these types of games did not have save slots. So if you wanted to complete them, good luck in one sitting. But yeah, I'm just gonna put these in like D tier. These are just more so a collection of like portions of games rather than fully fledged games. They're not terrible, but like, yeah. That said, these other plug-and-play games I have not played. These are the peripheral ones. So I have not played these. That said, yeah, they made one based off the Clone Wars back in 2009. Think about that. Okay, this is one of the ones I'm actually going to showcase gameplay for, because It's really uncanny when you consider when they came out. So let me look up Star Wars The Clone Wars plug and play. So let me just make sure that it's muted. Okay, yeah, like this is what the game was. Like look at that. Like it's sprite based. I mean, if this was like 1995 or 96, this would have been massively impressive. But this was 2009. Again, those aren't 3D models. Those are sprites that you see on screen. Yeah, like that's a sprite model you just saw. This looks like a late Super Nintendo or like early PS1 game. But like not a 3D PS1 game. And this was 2009. Think about that. That's the same year that brought us Uncharted 2, Modern Warfare 2, Assassin's Creed 2. Fucking what else? Dragon Age Origins? Like think about that. Again, I've not played this myself. This might be like the best fucking video game of all time for all I know. But just the fact that like this was even made that late in the 2000s. It's just weird, man. It's just fucking weird. But I digress. So, but now let's actually move on to, oh, wait. Oh! I just realized we don't have to talk about Revenge of the Sith yet, because... Actually, no. Actually, let me rephrase that. Let's talk about the Revenge of the Sith games, or at least somewhat related games first. So, we've got ourselves the tie-in game, movie game, and then we've got ourselves Republic Commando. So, this was the last game that was explicitly just kind of a normal... sort of, direct movie license game. At least as far as Star Wars is concerned. Yes, there is obviously Lego Star Wars The Force Awakens, but I don't count that because that is more of a Lego's kind of a weird case. So I don't count those, but this is the last of like strictly movie tied in. That being said though, this one's actually a weird case of it being another one of those that's actually one of the better ones. I'm gonna put it in like a low to midnight. It's actually not that bad. It's not great. It has some problems here and there, but like what this essentially is, it's like it's not exactly Star Wars Devil May Cry, but it's kind of similar to that. So like I guess that's like the best comparison I can make, is that if you wanted like basically Star Wars Devil May Cry, that's what Revenge of the Sith is. Although it's more, it does have more traditional fighting sections as well. So I guess it's more like a combination between both Dynasty Warriors. Oh, no, not Dynasty. Whatever. It's like a hack and slash. That's essentially what it is. So yeah, if you like a more slow-paced hack and slash, Revenge of the Sith game is an okay choice. It's a decent choice. And then we got Republic Commando, a game that I've always had mixed feelings about. I think I definitely like the commandos themselves, and I do like the the general shooting and the squad commands in this game. At the same time, though, I kind of wish that A, there was at least one other planet in the game, and B, that you did just a bit more damage against the heavier units, because it can feel like you're shooting bullet sponges in this game. And trust me, I played through this game twice on stream. And also third, the art direction is inconsistent. I like the actual look of the commandos themselves, and I think that the locales look pretty cool. Unfortunately, though, I am not a big fan of why they changed the battle droid design or the Geonosian designs. I don't know why those guys look different. That has always confused the fuck out of me. That said, I'm still going to put it at knight, but it is like a low knight, almost borderline Padawan. I think that this game is probably one of the more overrated Star Wars games, but it's not a bad game. So, by any stretch. It's a solid 6 out of 10. That is an above average game. And I know I pissed a lot of people off saying that, but it's not the best shooter game in Star Wars. These next 2 games are. Okay, now we've reached my favorite sub-series of Star Wars games. Let's just get it out of the way. And I've talked about these games before, so we're not going to spend too much time on this. Star Wars Battlefront 1 is a master game. Fantastic basis for essentially what is essentially Battlefield, but Star Wars themed, and can be both first and third person. Maps are mostly good. Movement is pretty good, although it does kind of feel like you can definitely feel that you can't run sometimes. And generally speaking, this is a pretty awesome game. And then the sequel came out. And this is literally my third favorite game of all time. There's nothing that's going to be topping this list. This is as good as Star Wars games can get. It has fantastic maps, except for maybe 2. But 2. Space battles are amazing. Heroes all feel fantastic to play, whether they're, they either got blasters or they're force users. Galactic Conquest is an amazing game mode. And hell, even a lot of the secondary game modes are fun as well, like the Capture the Flag modes or Hunt. Or even the Hero Assault, even if it's only on one map. I still think that is genuinely some of the most fun that I will ever have. And even the campaign, even if it's kind of bare bones, it tells a pretty decent enough of a story. And just the variety of locations you go to. You go to most of the, you go to most of the iconic planets throughout the Star Wars galaxy. And if you have the DLC, which I know the PC version doesn't, but console version has it, and there is a mod where you can add that to PC, you pretty much have a near complete set of maps. And of course, that's not even getting into the modding scene, which that's a whole other topic in and of itself. Lest it be known now, Star Wars Battlefront 2 is my third favorite game of all time, right behind Minecraft and Sly Cooper, so it's going to be in the top, no matter what. I fucking love this game, and I will always love this game. I mean, why else? Why else would I have why else would I have 3 separate copies of the game? I call this life insurance. So, I fucking love this game. And you're not going to change my mind on that. No one will. I will admit, though, do not play the PSP version. PSP version's trash. Don't play that version. Which, speaking of the PSP, that then links us to these games. Renegade and Elite Squadron. So these are lesser known games, but I think they have their merits, or at least Renegade Squadron has its merits. As a matter of fact, I'm actually also going to put this in Master Tier. The unique gimmick of both of these games is that you can actually customize your like the characters that you're playing as. So you can change what weapons that they use and all that fun stuff, mix and match. That's a pretty good, cool gimmick. I definitely do think that the story, at least in this game, is way, way better than that of base Battlefront 2. Hell, they even fleshed out Galactic Conquest a little bit by adding in a bit of a credit system, like, expanding upon the credit system. And I think that's pretty cool. I just wish that they didn't solely focus, like, it wasn't so Galactic Civil War heavy. It still has Clone Wars in it, but like only for instant action. How you can't even play Clone Wars in Galactic Conquest, which, I mean, that's a little bit disappointing. But like, other than that, maps are decent. They had to make some compromises because they brought back a decent amount of maps from Star Wars Battlefront 2, but they had to downsize them, which fair enough. But no, this is actually a decent game. And then, of course, that then brings us to Elite Squadron, which, well, if you guys know anything about the history of the Battlefront sub-series of Star Wars games, you guys know that they were originally going to make Star Wars Battlefront 3, but they unfortunately canceled it. It is another very similar story to KOTOR 2 as far as, Rocky developments. It's a huge, like, it's been documented to hell at this point. Go watch any documentary on YouTube on it. It is honestly one of the most sad things I've ever heard. But it technically did release, though it was on the PSP and the DS. And instead of calling it Star Wars Battlefront 3, it was called Star Wars Battlefront Elite Squadron. Yes, this is supposed to be the handheld version of what Star Wars Battlefront 3 was supposed to be. And that's cool. Though, I will say, it is, out of the OG era of Star Wars Battlefront, I do think that it is the weakest out of them. I mean, first of all, they brought back the customization from Renegade Squadron over to this game. Problem is that they locked a lot of that content behind, for some weird reason. I personally am not a big fan of that. Rosemary, don't be back there. Yeah, I don't trust you back there, please. Okay. Sorry, she was laying on the power strip, and that was really concerning me. Don't do that! A, you might shock yourself, and B, you will probably turn off the stream. I don't want to be responsible for that. Anyways. So yeah, I didn't like that restriction. They did thankfully bring back Clone Wars for Galactic Conquest. Though I will say Galactic Conquest is kind of awkward in this game. I don't know, just kind of not as efficient as I wish it was, at least in comparison to the previous two games. And, well, the maps. I don't know if I like the maps in this game, because one of the gimmicks that was pitched for Battlefront 3, and by extension this game, was the ability to be able to play space and ground maps at the same time. And that is realized in this game, though through multiple loading screens. Unfortunately, you have to do a loading screen whether you're on the ground, whether you're in space combat, or if you're actually on a capital ship. And that can be pretty tedious when you try to go through it, especially if you're playing on original hardware. And, well, tied to that mechanic is, well, two things. The ion cannon and the orbital strike cannon. Basically, your sort of like end goal stuff. Basically, every single match revolves whether or not you're able to capture the ion cannon on the ground to shoot down the shields of the capital ship so that you can get inside of that and blow it up. It can get a bit repetitive. And well, the story in this game, it's okay. It's not the greatest storyline, and well, considering that it's pretty much a stripped down version of the storyline that we were going to get in Battlefront 3, it doesn't seem like there was going to be a lot. Like, it does kind of seem like this was going to be kind of a crappy story, if that were to have been the case. And that sucks. That said, though, I do think that the game is still decent, even if it is the worst Battlefront game of the classic OG era. So, do keep that in mind. Speaking of... no, we might as well talk about the other Battlefront games. I'm just going to be frank. Battlefront 2015, this is going immediately in Jar Jar Binks. Borderline insult to gaming, because this game is a stripped down, bare bones version of what a Battlefront should be. Yes, this was the first game in the reboot, which unfortunately they have not followed up since 2017, which is pretty insulting. But as far as what this game is, it's literally just 4 maps. Yeah, 4 planets, essentially, with only like 2 modes. This game is also unplayable on PC right now. I even remember playing this game when it was still like populated, and even then I was still disappointed. Yeah, there's some light customization here and there, somewhat similar to like the PSP games, but again, it is stripped down to a T. And if I'm gonna be honest, I'd rather just be playing with classes at this point. I don't know. I like being able to have more structured gameplay, and by having different characters, like pretty much everyone being able to choose whatever weapon they want, that leads to a lot of balancing issues. As was the case, because the fucking Han Solo's blaster was the most overpowered thing in the game, and it still is. You will still see to this day people only using the DL-44. It's ridiculous. So, unfortunately, it is one of those games that has kind of become cursed over time, as far as being able to play it. So, it's unfortunately compromised. That then leads us to Battlefront 2 2017, which I've played plenty of times for you guys on stream. It did have a rough launch. It's infamous for how bad of a launch this game was. Over the years, though, it did eventually get better. They added in more content, and they added in basically the amount of content that it should have had at launch. So, like, I would even argue that, like, it would never have reached Master or Chosen Ones. I think people are, like, granted, you can still like whatever you want, but I think people are absolutely delusional to think that they still think that this game is better than the 2005 version, when objectively speaking, the 2005 game, even without mods, offers more content than Battlefront 2 2017. So, sorry. I admittedly got kind of triggered when someone, like, I was watching, like some lore video, like, some, like, Star Wars videos, and there was a motherfucker in the comment section who was like, Star Wars Battlefront 2 has way more, has way more of an ability to be modded than Battlefront 2005. And it's like, motherfucker, you can't even mod in actual full-fledged maps in 2017's game. Like, the servers of the game won't allow it. Meanwhile, people make custom maps in Battlefront 2005 all the fucking time. Like, I'm sorry, but, like, that actually, like, pissed me off. I don't know if it was a troll comment. It didn't seem like it was a troll comment, but like that pissed me off. Again, you can like whatever you want. Be informed, though. That's my point. But the reason why I'm taking my time on Battlefront 2 2017 is, well, unfortunately, something that kind of happened as of late, at least from what I can tell, is that the game right now is in an awkward state where it's a 50-50 chance on whether or not you're able to get a decent server or not. Because right now we're kind of in the weird spot of sorry, like, I don't know, unfortunately, as of late, there's been a bit of a cheating and bot problem in Battlefront 2. Not too dissimilar to something like Call of Duty or what TF2, like Team Fortress 2, experienced a few years prior. And that's unfortunate. That said, though, I'm just gonna put this in night, just barely, though. It barely just reaches night. So, yeah. And then last year they released Classic Collection, which was a compilation of the first two Battlefront games. You would think that would have been amazing because I love the OG Battlefront games, obviously. Normally I wouldn't rank compilations because typically compilations are just the same games just with together. But there's a reason why I have this separate. This game is even more unplayable than Battlefront 2017 was on launch. And also, you can't mod it the same way as the original versions. And it costs twice as much as both of those games combined, at least on Steam. And considering that you can get literally both of the old Battlefront 2 games, like both of the original Battlefront games, for only $5 right now, because they have the Star Wars sale going on right now. And then comparing it to Classic Collection, which, by the way, I don't even think has I don't even think this game has crossplay. Does it have crossplay? It doesn't even have crossplay, so you can't even play with people like on PC with other players on PlayStation or Xbox or Switch. You can't even do online play for Galactic Conquest. What the fuck? This was supposed to be an upgrade, not some cash grab bullshit. Well, I mean, it is a cash grab, so yeah, no, fuck this thing. Dude, I was fucking pissed whenever I heard everyone was talking about this game and how awful it was. I was fucking pissed. Because I was afraid that they were gonna GTA Definitive Edition this, where they would have gotten rid of the old version on Steam. God, thank fuck they didn't do that. Because holy shit, that would have been really bad. And thankfully, I gifted all of my friends the older games. Because holy shit, dude, imagine if they would have done that. Oh my god, there would be people who would actually be like outside of Aspire's doors to this day. thankfully they kept the old versions up. That would have been a huge problem. So, but unfortunately, though, yeah, this is unfortunately a gimped version of two classic shooter games that you should not buy. Don't play this unless if you have absolutely no other choice. If you don't own an Xbox, like if you don't own an Xbox, any of the Xbox consoles, if you don't own a PlayStation 2, and if you don't own a PC, but you only own like a PlayStation 4 or 5, like that's the only reason why you should, like, that's the only reason why you would want to get like Classic Collection. If you only have PlayStation, like a PlayStation 3, 4, 5, or a Nintendo Switch, which I sincerely doubt a lot of people have. I guarantee you at least someone has like an Xbox or a PC somewhere. So, or a PlayStation 2 even. Don't play Classic Collection. Don't play Classic Collection unless if it's absolutely necessary. It is not worth your money. Like, yeah, even the sale price, it's only it's $26. You can literally get the original versions of those games on Steam for just $5 in total for both of them. There's no point. There's no point. Whatever. Let's move on. Let's talk about Lego. Let's talk about Lego Star Wars. So Lego and Star Wars have been together with each other since 1999. So it was natural that over time someone would have wanted to make a video game where both of these two got combined. That happened in 2005 with Traveler's Tales, with Lego Star Wars, the video game. This game right here pretty much changed the game for a lot of, not just Lego games, but even just... Well, yeah, this changed the game in a lot of ways. This was one of the first games that I can think of that got a lot of hype for this weird, like, basically, like, being, like... I don't know, I just remember, like, even as a kid, whenever these games were first coming out, the excitement that a lot of people had for them, because these were full adaptations of the movies. Well, in Lego Star Wars, the original trilogy's case, more so episode 1 and 2, not so much episode 3, because this actually came out 2 months before episode 3 came out. So that kind of led to some awkward level design. And admittedly, because of that, that's why I'm not going to put this higher than a Knight. I think this game is still decent. But, yeah, it can be awkward. At least involving that. So, Lego Star Wars 2, I definitely think is, generally speaking, a much better game. I'm actually going to put this in the master tier. Generally, like, because this is based off the original trilogy, they didn't have that restriction of not knowing exactly what's going to be in the movies themselves. So they pretty much just adapted the most iconic parts of that movie. Actually, we added in a lot, more quality of life improvements. And yeah, this is also the first game that added in customization, which is pretty cool. So yeah. And then, of course, that then leads us to Complete Saga. I did play this actually fairly recently. Again, this is another compilation, so technically this is not really a game. It's more or less just kind of a compilation of different games. But that said, I am still going to put this in Master. I guess, like, it's still a good game. I guess I'm just one of those people who thinks that a lot of people do treat this game a bit too, like, people just have a bit too, high of rose tits and goggles with this game at points. Because like I said, it's literally just both of these two games combined into one cohesive game with some new stuff in there, here and there. And it is still fun. I mean, I've 90% of the game, basically. I just really don't want to do the time trials in the game. But yeah, it's just a decent amount of fun. I can see why people are at least nostalgic for it. That being said though, Lego Star Wars 3 Clone Wars absolutely slandered. What the fuck are people's problem with this game? This game gets way too much slander online. Yeah, this is one of those games that's up there with like Sly Cooper Thieves in Time, FNAF Security Breach, Assassin's Creed Shadows for me, where this game gets way too much shit. What the fuck is wrong with like why? What is wrong with this game? What is wrong with Lego Star Wars 3? Hell, here's a bit of a hot take. Here's a bit of a hot take and a red pill for everyone to swallow on this one. I know y'all are hating, but you know it's true. Objectively speaking, on a technical level, this is the better game. It has generally better like gameplay, has way more variety of different types of characters you can play as. The battle scenes, the battle mechanics are so good, people. Why do people shit on the battle missions? They're not bad. What the fuck are people smoking? Those are some of the best levels in the entire game. Those are so much fun. And hell, those battles have like light RTS mechanics in them, which is probably one of the reasons why I really like those, because I'm someone who's a sucker for RTS games. And even just like the vehicle sections are hella better than all the ones from the first two Lego Star Wars games. I will not hear out anyone who fucking says that like, the levels, like the vehicle sections are trash in this game, but not trash in the other games. No. Lego Star Wars 3 The Clone Wars is an absolute, hidden gem of a game, and I don't fucking care what people say. This is a fucking banger game. It is a solid 8 to 9, okay, maybe not 9 out of 10. It's an 8 out of 10 game. It's an 8 out of 10 game. I don't care what people say. All those people who say this is like a 5 or a 4, you're fucking wrong. You're fucking wrong. I don't care what people say. It's a good-ass game. So, I mean, yeah, like, it's based off of the first 2 seasons of the Clone Wars, which I know are, like, the least popular seasons, but I don't care. It's still a good game. Gameplay-wise, and besides, I like the Clone Wars anyways. It doesn't fucking matter what season. I like all the Clone Wars seasons. So, fuck you. Alright, let's calm down. Let's move on to the other games. Lego Star Wars Force Awakens. Admittedly, this is probably like this. If there's one game that's like out of all the Lego Star Wars games, I think is like the weakest, I would definitely say it's this one. It's still not a bad game, but it's misguided. I'm gonna put this one in Padawan. It pretty much is an adaptation of only one movie, which is already kind of bizarre to begin with. Like, why are you only adapting Force Awakens? Why didn't you just wait until like 2020 to adapt the entire I mean, they eventually did technically with Skywalker Saga, but like, it just feels wrong for them to only go for one movie. I mean, technically they didn't even just do one movie. They just did half of Return of the Jedi alongside Force Awakens to justify this game's existence. But then that gets into that just kind of proves my point, is that this is just kind of an unnecessary game to be making as far as Lego. There are some cool improvements here and there. They improved some of the shooting mechanics from the previous games, made it more into traditional third-person shooting, which I think is nice. But it just feels like the levels are kind of... A lot of them are half-assed. And you can definitely tell. So... I mean, some of the side content I think is genuinely pretty cool, but I don't know, man. This one's just an awkward game. So, that being said, let's move on to Skywalker Saga. What are people's problems with this game? Again, I'm seeing, like, this along with Lego Star Wars 3, I've seen so much people throw a lot of shit at this game, especially in, like, the past year. And that's really bothering me. Again, it's really fucking weird. Because this is one of the best games that was released in 2022. Hell, spoiler alert, for my Caspian Game Awards 2022, I gave it the best action adventure category. Like, it was the winner of that. So you can probably tell where this is going to go. I'm going to put this also above Complete Saga. Y'all can fucking boo at me all you want, but you know it's objectively true that it's just a better version. It is a better version of the old game. Yes, you don't spend as much time in all of the levels, like in the movies as much, because you, instead of having 6 levels per movie, you have only 5. But again, that's to compensate for the fact that there's already so many levels that are... that's to compensate for the fact that there are 9 movies this time. And hell, there are so many side activities throughout the entire game. Full-fledged open world game, like open worlds throughout the entire game. Like, this is a semi-open world game. And there's so many characters for you to be able to collect. It's insane. Yeah, it does suck that you can't really create your own characters anymore. Though you are talking to someone who doesn't really who didn't really use the creator or character creator all that much anyways, so it didn't really affect me personally. And well, here's another pill to swallow for a lot of people. Another red pill. What is up with your guys'... What's up with a lot of people and people shitting on actual voice acting in Lego games? Like, why is that a problem? I mean, if you like the old mumbling, that's fine. Hell, you can turn that on in this game. That's an option. You don't have to fucking hear people talk in this game if you don't want. I personally don't mind. So I don't have that on. I don't know. People have some serious fucking problems, I swear to God. I know this is already going to be, like, because of my takes on both of these, this is not going to be a popular stream, but, like, I'm just saying, people, this is objectively a way better game. Like, it's an improved version of what Complete Saga was. So, not to say that Complete Saga is bad, it's still in the same tier. But, like, again, people put Complete Saga way too high on a pedestal, I feel like. It's not... Hell, I'll even say this. Complete Saga, like, even if we're, like, ignoring the individual, like, you know, Lego Star Wars 1 and 2 and just considering Complete Saga, it's not even in the top 20 games from 2007 for me. Hell, it's not even, it may not even be in the top 30. Same thing with like even if we go individually, for 2000, like for the Lego Star Wars 1 and 2, I mean, yeah, maybe Lego Star Wars 2 for 2006 is up there, but definitely not for Lego Star Wars 1 for 2005. Like, I think I said that last year, but keep in mind that 2005 was such a fucking banger of a year. So, like, my list for that year already kind of changed. The same thing with 2007. Those were just goated years. So, my opinions do tend to change. But that's my point, is Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga is definitely one of the better games that came out of 2022. And if people are going to be going to make full-on video like essays on it, I don't know what else to tell you. But whatever. Let's see if we can wrap up this tier list, because we still got plenty of games here. So all right. Lethal Alliance, I have not played. I've heard very bad things about that though, so I can't really comment. With all that said, okay. I think we'll talk about Force Unleashed first, then we'll talk about the Clone Wars games. Or let me phrase that: the Clone Wars game, because I have not played any of these. I've not played Lightsaber Battles. I've not played whatever this DS game was. And I've not played Clone Wars Adventures. That was the second MMO for Star Wars. Again, Clone Wars was so in hindsight, I think Clone Wars was over marketed, and I think that's why people kind of were iffy with Clone Wars back in the day. Which, fair enough, it was over marketed. And these games were kind of an example of that, as well as this fucking game, which we'll get to later. So, but yeah, whatever. But let's talk about Force Unleashed. This is going to shock some people. Pun intended. Star Wars The Force Unleashed? I recently replayed both of these. I actually recently replayed both of these. I even played both the 6th and 7th gen versions of Force Unleashed. Because yes, this game has 2 different versions. I definitely think there's things that are interchangeable between both versions. But either way, this is going to surprise some people. This is actually one of my personal favorite Star Wars games of all time. Like low key. So this is basically Star Wars God of War. That's essentially what Star Wars Force Unleashed is. And I don't know about you guys, but just mowing down stormtroopers as this rogue agent, essentially, that's what you are, is so much fun. Especially using all the different force powers that you have, and just chopping down hundreds of stormtroopers and miscellaneous enemies at any given whim. It's just so much fun. I do think I am a bit more nostalgic for the 6th gen version, because I actually originally owned the Wii version of the game. It wouldn't be until much later when I finally played the PC version, which is the 7th gen version. Hell, I actually have... Actually, I just realized that this is technically a game I also have multiple copies of. Because, yeah, I have the PS2 version, and I got back my Wii version, and I have the version on PC. So, yeah, I have a wide variety of Force Unleashed games. I think, for me, personally, I think I prefer, I think I like the PS2/Wii version a bit better, because not only is it a longer game, but it's also more, there's also more varied locations, because you only go to each planet in the 7th gen version, which is supposed to be the main version. You only go to each location I think there's only like what 10 levels. There's like 13 or 14 in the old gen version. I mean, yeah, the animations are definitely more stiff. They're a lot more expressive in the 2000 like in the PC, PS3, Xbox 360 version. But I don't know. They both have pros and cons. But either way, colloquially speaking, yeah, no, Force Unleashed is actually one of my personal favorite Star Wars games. So, yeah. And then I played the sequel. And the sequel, I'm gonna put this, unfortunately, down in Padawan. I don't think it's nearly as bad as people make it out to be, because I know people who would put it down here. It's not that bad. It's just too short, and the PC version has some serious technical problems. This game, I'm pretty sure I beat in one night in a Discord call with Goldie and I. This is like at the tail end of 2022, early 2023, like around there. I like literally beat this game in one like sitting. It is a short game. It is a fun game though. Don't get it twisted. This is easily like still. I'd say like gameplay wise, it's as fun as like the first game. I just wish that there was just more to it though. It's the same problem that Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes has, where it's more of a tech demo and more of a prologue than an actual game. And that is my problem with Force Unleashed 2. It is way too short. That, and also, I played the PC version of this game, and like this like it's like the last 30 minutes of the game that I played, it was like the game was starting to break. I don't know what the hell was going on. Like it was doing fine the first like 60% of the way, 60-70% of the way, but like the last like 30% of the way, it was just an awful experience. I have no idea what was going on there. But out of principle, I have to put this in Padawan, unfortunately. And that sucks, because I like the game, but it still, unfortunately, has some massive problems. So, as a matter of fact, this is probably like my highest C tier. So, I can't be as forgiving with this Clone Wars game, because I remember I actually owned this whenever I first got my PS3. I even remember whenever this game first came out, really wanting it, because again, I was really big into Clone Wars, and I was excited that it actually got a dedicated game. Problem is that this game is, well,
not good.
It's not good. Jar Jar Binks, it is. I have since gotten rid of it. Wait, did I get rid of it? Yes, I did. Okay. I have since gotten rid of it, but it's rough. It's a weird action-adventure, twin-stick shooter hybrid game. And it's not only, at least in hindsight, it kind of looks rough for a PS3 game. Because I got the PS3 version. I'm pretty sure there was a PS2 version. Wars, Republic Heroes. Yeah, wasn't there a PS2 version? There was. I didn't play that. I played the PC version. Yeah. It was a drag. It was a slog to get through, although it's not really that surprising considering that this was made by the same studio that made the first two Legend of Spyro games. And well, but at the same time though, they made the Force Unleashed on PS2 and Wii, and that's the version I prefer. What the fuck? Huh? Huh? I don't fucking get this. So yeah, again, this was just a weird hybrid between hack and slash and twin stick shooter, but neither of them were particularly all that good gameplay wise. And also the plot is pretty nonsensical, even for early Clone Wars. So yeah, suffice to say, this is unfortunately a bit of a mess of a game. So yeah. Which, speaking of messes of games, fucking Star Wars Connect. I've not played this actually. Yeah, I scared you guys there. I actually have not played this because I never owned a Connect, nor did my cousins. That thing still gives me nightmares. Okay, all jokes, all like scary Connect jokes aside, I've not played this, but I'm pretty sure you guys know exactly where this would be. This game is a joke. It is one of the most infamous just video games of all time. I'm pretty sure this was the last big. No. That was Old Republic. Old Republic was like the last big Star Wars game to come out before the Disney buyout. But this is just a joke game. Like, don't expect to take this game all that seriously, because nobody did when it came out, and people still don't. I mean, they have a stupid Just Dance ripoff section, which has been memed to death. That should tell you everything about this game. So, yeah, no. Lame. And I don't want to play it. It's the same reason why I refuse to play this piece of shit game right here. No. Alright, well then that leads us into the modern era of Star Wars games. The Disney era. So, but of course, let's take a bit of a detour from mainline games and let's talk about 2 games here, or 3 games. So first of all, Star Wars Commander. This is basically just Clash of Clans, but Star Wars themed, so you can probably already guess where this is going. Jar Jar tier. You can't even play this game anymore. Yeah, they shut down the game back in 2020, 2021, I believe. But yeah, I played it, and well, it's as trash as it sounds. So yeah. And then these VR games. I have not played these VR games, so I can't really comment on those. But we got ourselves 2 actually 3 absolutely banger games. Actually, I'm gonna do this chronological from now on, so we'll talk about this after. So Jedi Fallen Order. I just recently did my second playthrough of this game, because I did a playthrough back in 2020. I just redid it 5 years later, just a few months ago. And you know what? I'm also going to put this in High Master. It's almost in Chosen One for me. This has easily become one of my favorite Star Wars games, period. And that is really weird, considering that this is in the modern Star Wars era, and most stuff in this era is kind of mediocre. I'm just going to be frank. Obviously, go watch our Star Wars film and show tier list if you want more details on that. But Jedi Fallen Order basically just being Star Wars Sekiro Light is why I like this game a lot. Because, again, it's basically just a more accessible version of a Souls game. Which is something that is a much needed breath of fucking fresh air. Considering that Souls games, for better and for worse, and for me personally, I feel like for worse, have been taking the whole. They've been like the critical darlings of the past like 5 years. And that is kind of annoying for me because I'm someone who doesn't like playing games for challenge. I like playing games for the experience and to relieve stress. I don't want to add more stress when playing a game. So having easier difficulties helps basically bring my stress down. And just being able to just experience the game just being able to experience the game on a casual level, just taking in the story and just again chopping down whatever stormtrooper I see, not in like the glorious faction, like a glorious fashion like Force Unleashed, but in a more, I guess, lore appropriate way. And I just find that to be all the more comforting for me. I wish that dismemberment mod still worked, though. I'm still upset about that, but whatever. That I might do a separate playthrough with that on. But yeah, like I do think that Jedi Fallen Order is a fantastic Star Wars game, and I recommend anyone to check it out. Do so at your own, pace. And I'm gonna actually say similar things about Star Wars Squadrons. This is also a fantastic game. The fact that people fucking review bombed this is pretty fucking pathetic on their part. Because this is basically a modern version of a combination of both X-Wing and Rogue Squadron. This is the thing that people have been asking for decades. And we finally got it. And then nobody fucking gave a shit. Except for people like me who like flight sim games. So yeah, no, this game is fantastic. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put it just right beside X-Wing and TIE Fighter. It's up there. It is up there. So, fuck the haters. This game is good. Sue me. Alright, and then that then leads us to these last three games, these are the most recent games released in the past 2 years. In Jedi Survivor's case, almost quite literally 2 years, because this came out in late April. This came out on like April 30th of 2023, right? Star Wars Jedi Survivor. April 28th, okay. Man, if only modern gaming had the ability to launch games without game-breaking bugs. That is the unfortunate crutch with this game. Because this is a genuinely fantastic game. Arguably as good as Jedi Fallen Order. In some areas, even better. Better animations, better cutscenes, better overall gameplay. Still keeping up the idea of making this a entry-level Souls game. That's awesome. Why you gotta release it in a weird state for PC, though, is my question. Because, yeah, that's unfortunately why I didn't nominate it in our Caspian Game Awards for 2023. Otherwise, this would have been the winner. Easily. But in good faith, I could not. That being said, this is not the Caspian Game Awards. This is my tier list. So we're actually going to put it all the way up in Master. Just kind of in the middle here. It's right there.
right below Jedi Fallen. Literally below, but not figuratively. Again, it's that PC launch that unfortunately holds it back. Otherwise, it is still a fantastic game. So, which I think it has gotten better on PC, which is good. Just keep in mind which version you're playing. That being said, we got last two games. Star Wars Hunters. This was a Switch exclusive, from what I can tell, but it is a hero shooter. I didn't play it, so I can't comment on that. Though, considering it's a hero shooter, you can probably guess where I would have my opinions on it. So, yeah. And well, that then leads us to the latest release, Star Wars Outlaws. And oh boy, was this a controversial as hell game. So, this game is awkward. I don't think it's like a bad game. Let's just get this out of the way here. It is not an insult to gaming. It is not a Jar Jar Binks. Hell, in some aspects, it's not even like in the worst aspects of Padawan. But here's the problem. This game was marketed as being like a shooter action adventure open world game, which is typical because well, Ubisoft made the game, or they published the game. Well, they co-developed it with their studio Massive, who made the Division games. So that's not to be unexpected from Ubisoft. What was unexpected, however, is the fact that this game had stealth mechanics in 4 stealth sections without compensating for the stealth itself. Yeah, that makes sense. Right? So, there were literal missions where, because keep in mind, Star Wars is a universe that you would think would have suppressed weapons, but it just doesn't. The only suppressed weapon I can think of is a DC-19, which is basically a stealth version of the DC-15 carbine that you see clone troopers carrying around, with a built-in silencer. That's the only stealth weapon I can think of that's in the Star Wars universe. Maybe like a stun gun, but like that's it. Like, you're pretty much out of luck. And well, considering that Disney is kind of sporadic as far as how much creative freedom people are allowed to use with the Star Wars license nowadays, it makes it kind of difficult to create new weapons for the Star Wars universe, including stealth ones. And so, and that is the case with this game, where it had so many required stealth sections where you could not stealth them, resulting in dozens of game overs because of the stupid fucking mechanic. Not to mention, you couldn't permanently carry other weapons other than your pistol at any given moment, leading to some super frustrating gameplay at points. And of course, this is added upon the typical repetition of a lot of Ubisoft open world games anyways. So yeah, granted, I don't think the game is awful looking. That is a part of a stupid online grift that people are doing, and frankly, I've ranted about it before, and I'm gonna be more open about it. Stop fucking falling for right-wing grifters online. All they want to do is take advantage of your outrage and channel it into something else. That's what those types of people do. The game looks fine. Yeah, the characters can look different, but this is fucking Star Wars. There's literal fucking goofy-ass werewolves and devil guys in the fucking first movie, yet nobody complained back then. So, shut the fuck up. Now, as for the game itself, I am going to put it in Padawan. I don't think it's the absolute worst game ever. It's just a mediocre one. I think it's like a 5 out of 10. That's an average game. So, it is not the worst game that Ubisoft released last year. It's not even amongst one of the worst Star Wars games, as you can clearly see on our tier list. But I do think that it is a kind of awkward like it's kind of in an awkward period, and is unfortunately reflective on a lot of Star Wars media of the past couple of years, or even just past decade, if I'm just going to be frank about myself. So yeah, unfortunately, despite my love for Star Wars games, we ended up dead last on a pretty mediocre game, and that sucks, because I love Star Wars games. You can tell I have so many games, at least a night onwards. So, and again, that pretty much, I think, is something that's like the ultimate thing to take away from tonight, is that Star Wars games as a whole have a pretty decent to good track record compared to other franchises. And I don't know, I think that's pretty much saying a lot. And yeah, there might be the occasional just awful game here and there. You know, Rebel Assault, the Classic Collection, whatever the fuck they were doing with those plug and play games. But overall, there's way more good than bad as far as Star Wars games are concerned. And hell, even the games in Padawan, like, a lot of them, even though like they may be inferior to a lot of the games that are above them, they still have their moments of genuine charm with them, and have at least some pretty creative ideas. So, and that's ultimately what I think I want to like end the stream on, is that, you know, in a weird way, it was actually, like, obviously it was, you know, episode 3, that was, I think that's like the one thing I can distinctly remember. That was like the first thing that initially introduced me and got me into Star Wars as a kid. But it was really video games, I think, that cemented that for me. I mean, just look at how many games I put in Knight and Master. And, I mean, look, the top game, Star Wars Battlefront 2 2005, that's my third favorite game of all time, that I have 3 physical copies of. That is some and Steam even. Like, I got the Steam version as well. Hell, I might even buy the GOG version if I'm very desperate. I don't know I'm gonna purchase that, but I'm just saying, like, it's a game that I personally hold a lot of memories for. And even a bunch of these other games as well. Jedi Fallen Order, Force Unleashed, the Lego Star Wars games, X-Wing and TIE Fighter, Empire at War, Dark Forces 1 and Dark Forces and Jedi Knight 1. These are games that I think are fantastic. And if you are a fan of Star Wars, it's a no-brainer for you to at least try one of these games. Even if you don't like one game and you don't like that genre, that's fine. You might like another game, because a lot of these games cover a wide variety of different genres. You've got typical action-adventure games, you've got your shooter games, you've got your RTSs, you've got your grand strategy games, you got your flight sims, you've got your Souls-like games, your hack and slash, God of War likes, like, you got your platformers even with like the Super Star Wars games. These are just like, Star Wars have been able to give out a vast variety of genres available for really any type of video gamer, and that, I think, is worth a lot. So yeah, no, in a weird way, yeah, no, Star Wars games, I think, ultimately hold a lot of weight, and just the legacy of them is, I'd argue, as big as the movies. And obviously we can go on to a huge conversation about, you know, the whole Disney canon, because unfortunately most of these games are no longer a part of the Universal Star Wars canon. In recent years, I'm not someone who is one of those weirdos who's going to be dismissive about newer Star Wars and declare it not canon. I see the same thing happen with Sly Cooper Thieves in Time, and that's an extremely toxic mentality. And I see that a lot with like Star Wars as well, especially when it comes to anything made by Disney. Even though I am a massive critic of the sequel trilogy, and I'm a massive critic of a lot of their newer shows, again, shameless plug, other Star Wars tier list, I'm not going to be dismissive of anyone who is a fan of that stuff. And again, there's some stuff of the Disney era that I do like. Rogue One, Andor, the Jedi games. Hell, I even give credit to Mandalorian Season 1 and 2. And hell, the Star Wars Tales of the Jedi and Clone Wars Season 7. There's some good in there. So, I think that's ultimately... I think ultimately, if I were to make Star Wars, I would try to make a personal... basically, for me, I have my personal canon of what is considered to be core Star Wars. For me personally, it would be the first 6 movies that George Lucas worked on, but also Rogue One, as well as Andor, and pretty much every season of both of the Clone Wars, just trying to justify some of the weird differences that are in the endings of both of those, but I digress. And pretty much all the non-Lego games that are on the top here. So yeah, all these games would be, I guess, yeah, and also none of the non directly movie tie-in games and arcade games. I don't know, Star Wars is complicated, but whatever. But yeah, no, I think that's ultimately what I'm going to say, is that Star Wars is something that can be enjoyed by anyone. Obviously, not everyone likes Star Wars. That is completely fine. But it is the one mainstream franchise that means a lot to me. Because I know I typically like a lot more alternative media, as I've started coining recently. That's something I tend to notice. But Star Wars is the one exception. And I cherish it a lot because it helped impact me as a person. So, I mean, I'm wearing a Revenge of the Sith shirt for a reason. So, it is May the 4th, so there's that. But yeah, that is going to be it for tonight. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you guys did, of course, make sure you guys, if you're on Twitch, hit the follow button and turn on the bell icon. If you're watching this on YouTube, of course, subscribe, bell icon over there as well. While you guys are at it, of course, make sure you guys check out the link tree down below, specifically the Discord, SoundCloud, all that fun stuff. If you guys haven't already on Twitch, I highly recommend you guys also hit the subscribe button to directly support the content. If you can't necessarily do that, that's completely fine. I'm just glad you guys took time to watch this. But regardless of whether, though, make sure you guys share the stream to other people as well, and continue awesome people in the process. But until then, I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good night. And May the 4th